Hi everyone, it's Hannah from Hand Done Crochet, and today we are making these granny stitch stockings together. Now they're really simple and really fun to make, and I've done lots of different versions, as you can see the different colour versions here, but I'm going to make a plain one with you today. I'm going to show you how to do the extra embellishments like the pom-poms and the labels and the other bits and bobs that I've included in the pattern too. Now they use beginner stitches, so we're going to need a single crochet stitch and a double crochet stitch, but we're also going to cover how to do a yarn over slip stitch and how to do extended single crochets and how to work split stitches too. So lots to cover today. I chose to use Brava Tweed from WeCrochet, which is a worsted weight yarn, and we're using the colour Wren in the tutorial today. You're also going to need a 4.5mm or G+ crochet hook to make the stockings, and then a pair of scissors, a needle for your ends, and then a pom-pom maker if you want to add those too. To begin our stocking, we are going to work the toe section here first, and that's worked in rounds using split stitches. And then we do the foot, and then we carry on to the leg. And I've started one here actually in the tweed yarn, but it's super hard to see where we put the stitches and how we split them. So what I've decided to do is work a toe section in a plain yarn. So I'm going to just use a plain Brava, exactly the same weight worsted yarn here to show you how we do this bottom of the toe, and then I will switch back to the Brava tweed to work the rest of the stocking. To start our toe, we are going to need to make a magic ring. So I wrap the yarn around my fingers twice, pop under that first, scoop the second out, and then we are ready to make a chain one to begin our stitches. And now into our magic ring, we are going to work 8 extended single crochet stitches. Now extended single crochets are really similar to regular single crochet stitches. We begin exactly the same way as you see here, but the difference here is that we're going to yarn over, and then whereas normally we would pull through both loops, we're actually just going to pull through one loop on the hook here for this one. So just one there, and then we yarn over and then we pull through both of the loops. So that is our extended single crochet there. And so we're going to work 8 of those into this magic ring. So here we are again, yarn over and pull through 1, and then yarn over and then you pull through 2. And it just gives a really nice, slightly taller than a single crochet stitch, but not too tall, and it gives a really nice close texture and means that we can split the stitches, which is what we will do for the subsequent rounds of the toe and then of the heel. So carry on and get your 8 extended single crochet stitches into this magic ring, and then we'll be ready for round 2. Now we have our 8 stitches, I'm just going to pull my magic ring almost closed, and then we'll be ready to start round 2. Now if you are a fan of stitch markers, this is where you want to have one handy, but if you're like me and don't like them, I will show you a trick in just a moment as to how you can still keep track of your stitches. So to begin this next round, we are going to be working into each of the stitches around, and we want to work, rather than into the actual part of the stitch that we normally do, we're going to work into the center. So let's pull this stitch apart and let's have a look. We go right through into what are called the legs of the stitch. So normally you would go through into here and you'd have the V of the stitch over and above the top of your hook, but that's not where we want to put our stitches. We want to put them right down into the center of the stitches, and because we've done extended stitches, we have a bit more room to play with here and it's slightly easier to see where it goes. We have a V there, and then we have a V underneath, and we're going for that bottom V that we have, and we pop our hook right through the center of the stitch there. And we're going to work extended single crochets again for this round. So we pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 1, and then we yarn over and pull through 2 to complete the stitch. And now each stitch in this round will get 2 of those in the center of it. So we're going to double our stitch count for this round. So now I need to pop my hook right back into that place again, and I'm going to work another extended single crochet into that same place there. So now we have 2 stitches for that round 2. And now my little cheat here is to pop your hook in the first stitch of the round, get your tail, and pull your tail through, and that now is your stitch marker, and that can move each round that you work, you can move that up with you to mark the first stitch of your round. And so now we need to look for our second stitch of the round, and this is where we would normally go, but we're actually going to use split stitches again. So make sure that you find this. This is critical for this first round here to get right, or second round that we're working actually. But we're going to do an extended single crochet into the center of each of the stitches around. So we began with 8 stitches, and now we're going to end up with 16. So not into this space here where you'd regularly put a stitch, into the center of the stitch is where we need to go. So 2 stitches into each stitch around. Now here we are at the end of that round, and we can pull your yarn back through or take your stitch marker out, whichever you're using. And now we're ready for the next round, which is going to have a split extended single crochet in each of the stitches around. So our stitch count will stay the same. We're going to have 16 stitches at the end of this round. And now don't forget, once you've got going, pop your stitch marker in or your yarn back in so that you know where you began. And now here we are at the end of that round, and you can see much easier now where the split stitches are and where they're going to sit for us. So as we continue, we carry on using these split stitches, but I'm going to switch back to my original yarn now so that I can show you the rest of it. So our next round we need to increase, and the way that we are going to do that is by working 2 stitches into some and not into others around this round. And we're going to think of them in sets of 2. And so in this first stitch here, we are going to work 2 extended single crochet, and into the next stitch we're going to work 1 extended single crochet, and that will become the repeat for the round. So we begin with split stitches again, and we're going to do 2 extended single crochet into that first stitch there, and then just 1 extended single crochet into the next stitch. And now we pop back to put our marker in or our yarn in, whichever you're using, and then we just repeat that all the way around by working 2 extended single crochet into the next stitch, and then 1 extended single crochet in the next. So then our next round we are going to stay with the same stitch count. We're just going to work an extended single crochet into the center of each of the stitches around. So remember to keep splitting those stitches all the way for this toe, and then move your stitch marker up. And the only piece of advice that I would have if you are using your yarn tail for your stitch marker, as I'm doing here, is to make sure that your initial tail is plenty long enough, because as your toe grows, your tail will need further to stretch. Now here we are at the end of that round, and our next round, round 6, is going to be another increase round. So we are going to begin by adding 2 extended single crochet split into that first stitch. I never know which way round to say it, but here we go. Let's pop 2 extended single crochet into that first stitch, and then we're going to work a single extended crochet into the next and into the next. So we only increase on that first stitch, and that then becomes the repeat for the round. So move your stitch marker or your yarn, and then we'll see here that we, over the first 3 stitches of that round, we've actually increased it to 4. So we have 1, 2 in the first, and then 3 and 4. So that becomes our pattern for this round, and so that will increase our stitch count to 32 by the end of this round. Now our next round keeps our stitch count the same by working just 1 split extended single crochet into each of the stitches around. So that will be round 7 now. Here we are at the end of that round, and our next round is round 8, and we're going to be doing another increase round here. So we're going to be increasing in that first stitch as we have with the other rounds, and then we're going to be working an extended single crochet into the next 3 around. So we've got 4 stitches here that we will then turn into 5 stitches as we increase around. So we work 2 into this first stitch here, and then 3 individual stitches. So that then becomes our stitch repeat all around, and that will increase our stitch count now to 40 by the end. So we have our 5 stitches there for our repeats. Move that marker, and then off we go round the rest of that round. Now for round 9, we're going to keep the stitch count the same, and we're going to work a split extended single crochet into each of the stitches that we have around. Now round 10 is our final increase round, and you may have already guessed it because it follows the pattern, and we're going to increase over these 5 stitches that we have here. We're going to pop 2 extended single crochet into that first stitch, and then we'll pop 1 extended single crochet into the next 4. So that will turn our 5 stitches here into 6 stitches, and that will be our pattern repeat for the round. So we have 2 here in this first stitch, and then move your marker before I lose my count. And then just 1 extended single crochet into the center of the next 4. And that gives us our repeat, and that gives us our 6 stitches there. So carry on all the way around. Then when we get to the end of that round, we have just one more round left to do for the toe, and we're going to just work an extended single crochet into each of the stitches around. So our stitch count will stay the same for this round. We've ended up with 48 from our last round. We're going to end up with 48 at the end of this round. And then when we finish this one, we are ready to do the foot. Now that we've finished the toe section, we are ready to carry on and work the foot. Now this is done by working in granny stitch from here to here, where we split then for the heel. And the really important thing to know at this point is that if you're working one of the colourwork versions, some of the colourwork starts from this very point. So make sure that you check the chart of the one that you're making, or in the written pattern, make sure you know which colours you're working with for each of the rounds of this foot section. So to begin our foot section, the first thing we need to do is slip stitch into that first stitch to join, because we're not working in continuous rounds anymore. So that begins our round. And now to start with, we are going to be working a stacked double crochet into this first stitch. Now you can work a chain 3, or you can work a large chain 1 and then a double crochet into it, but I really think these are the best stitches to use here. So a stacked stitch is a single crochet here into the first one, and then what we're going to do is literally stack a stitch on top of that by working into the side of that stitch here. So we're going to pop another single crochet on top of that one that we have just made, and that creates the height of the stitch that we want. That's the height of a double crochet, because the rest of the round is going to be a double crochet into each of the stitches. So our stitch count will stay the same. We had 48 stitches, and we're going to end with 48 stitches. The only important thing again to say here is that you must check in the charts or the written pattern if you're doing one of the multicoloured versions, because your colours may change on this round already. So just watch out for that, but otherwise our stitch count remains the same, and we work all the way around with these double crochet stitches. Now here we are at the end of the round, and we're going to slip stitch to the first stitch to join. So now the fun part begins, and we are ready to start our granny stitch section. Now we are going to need to start to create our sets of 3 stitches by popping them in between our first and second stitch that we have here. So I'm going to slip stitch here in between those 2 stitches. Rather than working into the stitch, we go between the 2 stitches. So pop that slip stitch there, and then we are ready. In this space that we have created here now, we are going to start our first set of our granny stitch, and that begins with a stacked double crochet, just like the one we did before. So 2 single crochets stacked on top of each other to begin our round, and then 2 double crochet into that same place that we're already in. Now that creates our first cluster of stitches, our set of stitches. And then what we need to do is we need to skip the next 3 stitches of the round, and then before the next stitch, in the space that we're going to create before the next stitch, after these 3, is going to be where we pop our next set of 3 double crochet stitches. So we have 1, 2, and then 3 to go in there. And that's basically what we do for the rest of the round. We go 1, 2, 3 stitches, skip those, and pop our next 3 double crochet into this space that we create here. And now this is the hardest round, I think, to set up, because we need to create these spaces. Once we go for the next rounds, subsequent rounds, we've already made those spaces because the stitches will sit as they need to. So skip those 3 and then 3 into the space before the next stitch. And then when we complete that round, we'll have 3 stitches left to skip, and then we're just going to slip stitch into that first stitch to join and to complete that round. And you can already see that it's starting to take shape. Yay! Now our next round, round 3, is the set established pattern for the foot and indeed the leg. And so I'm going to show you in this one colour, but bear with me because your colour will be different if you're using the multicoloured version. And I'm going to show you how to change colours in just a moment, but we'll do it in this single colour to start with. So we begin by getting to this space. This is where we need to be. We need to slip stitch our way, whichever colours you're using, slip stitch our way through the stitches until we reach this point here. So this is now going to be between the stitches still, but it will be really obvious because you'll have a space here that we've created by working the stitches, sets of stitches together underneath. And then into that space, we are then basically going to just do what we've previously done. We're going to put a stacked double crochet into this space. So that's our single crochet there, and then our single crochet into the side to stack on top of it, and then 2 double crochet into that same space. And then we're going to skip the next 3, and then we're going to work 3 double crochet before the next stitch. I want to say space, but it's not technically a space, it's just a space we've created. And then skip the next 3 and we carry on. And that's all we do all the way around. Now here we are at the end of the round, and we are just going to slip stitch in that first stitch to join. And so if you are using this single colour, you are ready, you are set to go. We're just going to carry on repeating that last round until we get to the point where we split for the heel. But if you are using a different colour, then I will show you how to change your colours now. Now, if we are changing colour at this point, the important thing to know is that we don't change colour until we get to this space here. So we're going to use, so that we can carry our yarn, we're going to use the same colour yarn to slip stitch through the next 2 stitches as I am here. And then when we get to this point where you would normally yarn over and slip stitch here into this space to be ready, we're now going to change over into our new colour. So we just keep our other working yarn there at the back, we introduce our new colour with that slip stitch there. Now tug the other colour really tightly down, and then we are all set to go with our new one. And now we start with a stacked double crochet here, just as we did, because the pattern's exactly the same regardless of what colours we are using. And then we put 2 double crochet into that same place. And now you'll notice that I haven't caught my yarn underneath there. I don't like to do that because I don't like how it pulls it across to the side and moves the stitches and slants them slightly. I want to be able to weave in that end up towards the back rather than it pull across like that. But that's just me being me. If you want to catch your yarn and weave them in as you go, then that's absolutely fine too. But then I've skipped ahead of myself because we are ready now to change back to our other colour. And so we need to do that on this very last stitch of the set of 3 that we have in this space here. So what I need to do, I need to undo this stitch here because this is where we're going to change the colour. and on the last yarn over of that third stitch there, where you would normally just do a regular stitch, we're not going to do that. We are going to grab our yarn A and we are going to gently drape that across the back of our stitches, yarn over, and complete the stitch with that new colour. Now we are completely ready with that draped just gently there across the back to start our next set of 3 double crochet into the next space. So skip the next 3 and then work just as we normally would. The stitches are exactly the same, it's just the colour that we're changing here. So 3 stitches into that one, but then if you're changing colour again, rather than yarn over with that colour, we're going to switch back to our yarn B, and that's going to yarn over and pull through to complete that stitch. And now that is gently draped. I don't know how many times I've said that now, but gently draped across the back there. And it's really important actually to say that, because you don't want them too tight, you don't want them too loose, you just want them to have the space that they need for the stitches to fill out. If you have them too tight, it will pucker and change the shape of your stocking, and if you have them too loose, then people's hands might get caught as they dive in to get their presents. Now, once you've completed your foot section, as I have here, we need to create a space for the heel. And we're going to do that so that then afterwards we can add the heel. It's called an afterthought heel. And we then carry on making the leg section right now. So in order to do that, we need to create a chain here. So we're going to chain 24, and then we will reattach this back at the other side of the stocking, and that will just leave us the space that we need for the heel. So chain 24 to begin with. So now we've made that, we are ready to skip the next 24 stitches. So that's 8 sets of our 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now what we're going to do is slip stitch into the space here before the next set of stitches. And this will create our heel space for us. And now what we need to do is continue this round, or even begin this round, by working a stacked double crochet here in this space. And this will all seem really familiar because it's exactly what we've been doing before. And then another 2 double crochet into that space as well. And then we just carry on. We're going to pop into the next space as we have been with the other rounds. We're going to do 3 double crochet here, and then continue this all the way around till we get back to that chain again. So here we are back at this 24 chain, and we are going to pop a double crochet into each of those stitches. So we've done 24 because we've already done the 8 sets in the spaces that we've had, and now we're going to pop a double crochet into each of these 24, and that will mean that our stitch count will stay the same at 48. And now here we are at the end, and I'm going to slip stitch in that first stitch to join, and then you may have already guessed it, we're going to slip stitch through the next 2 and then into that space, and we are good to go. We're going to carry on doing the leg section exactly the same way as we did the foot section, by working the stacked double crochet in that first one, and then 2 double crochet in, and now our 3 double crochet in each of the spaces. The thing we will need to remember with this round is that when we then get to our double crochets here, we're going to need to create those spaces again, just like we did on the setup round for the foot part of it. We're going to need to create the spaces by skipping the stitches and then popping our sets of 3 in those spaces, just like we did here, remember. So go ahead and get this round completed, and then we'll be ready to carry on with the leg. Okay, so I've now got to the top of the leg here, and I've slip stitched in that first to join, and I wanted to show you before we work the cuff just what it looks like on another one. So it's a turned over cuff, and we work back and forth in rows using a join as you go method, and you can make this as long as you like, just remembering that you will then turn it back on itself. I've kept mine fairly short here, but you can make it as long as you like, and we go up and down in rows to join here, and it's such a simple method to use. So as I said, you can make your cuff as long or as short as you like, just remembering that you are going to fold it over. So whichever length you decide it to be, it needs to be twice as long for your starting chain so that you can then fold it back over on top of itself. But in the pattern, I have suggested that we chain 25 here, and that gave me the depth of cuff that I liked. So we begin with that chaining of 25 from that first stitch here that we were slip stitched into. So here we are with our 25 chains, and we're going to rotate so that we can then work back along these and then join as we go to the last round of the leg. And I'm going to suggest that we work into the back bumps of these chains here. I find that's a much neater finish, especially then when you're going to join the cuff together. So turn it on its side so that you can see those back bumps. We're going to work a yarn over slip stitch into the second chain from the hook and each along. So we yarn over, pop our hook through, pull through that loop and then pull through everything. And then we repeat the same again in the back bump of the next stitch. Yarn over, pull through and pull through everything. Now if you haven't used a yarn over slip stitch before, they can be really fiddly to begin with, and I'm not going to lie, this first section here, look, there's not much space at the front of the stitch, but if you twist it so that you pull through the back of the stitch, you have loads more space and capacity there. So don't be disheartened if this row feels a bit tricky. It's not you at all. There's no space there at the front, so twist and pull through there at the back. That's my top tip. And also changing maybe a hook to a slightly more pointy hook, if that makes sense, because that generally helps the slip stitches come through. But the worst thing that you can possibly do is pull tighter. Don't pull tighter, give it space, just like that. Make sure that your stitches have lots of space here, otherwise it will just get tighter and tighter, and that's when I think people abandon slip stitch or yarn over slip stitch ribbing, because it just gets beyond the point where you can actually get your hook in. Now here we are back, and if you give your stitches a tug, it's always a good thing to do because then you know exactly where you are. We're going to slip stitch into the next stitch along, and that's the only time we're going to slip stitch into just one. The rest of the times we get back there, we're going to slip stitch into two. Now we're going to turn over because we're going to work back into these stitches we've just created, but I'm only doing this to show you so that you can see with my work here. If I was doing it normally, I wouldn't turn, I would just turn the cuff backwards and forwards. You don't have to keep flipping if you don't want to. But what we're going to do is we're going to skip the slip stitch that we have just done to join into, and we're going to work into the back loop only of each of these stitches along, and we're going to pop a yarn over slip stitch, remembering to twist and give yourself the space there at the back of the stitch. So work along a yarn over slip stitch into the back loop only of each of the stitches along here. And now we get to this last stitch, and the options are you can go into the back loop as we have been doing all along, or you can go into the full part of the stitch, and that's what I'm going to do. It's entirely up to you, but I feel like going into the full part keeps it a little bit firmer and doesn't give you quite so much stretch or gapping at the top. But it's entirely up to you, depending on how much you'd like yours to stretch. Now we are ready to flip over because we are going to work back along this line of stitches that we have just made and then get back to join as we go. So we chain one and we do a yarn over slip stitch into the back loop only of each of the stitches all the way along here. And now here we are back again, and we're going to slip stitch back into these stitches that we have here, but we're going to do into two this time as opposed to the one that we did before. So slip stitch into one and two of the stitches, and then we're ready to turn and go again. Now this time around we of course will have to skip those two slip stitches that we did as opposed to the one that we did before, and this is the same for each time we now repeat. It's always going to be slip stitch in two and then skip those two. So off we go, back loop only, And we just keep repeating this now until we have filled up all of the stitches around the top of our stocking. So go for it, keep going, meet me back here and we will join it together. So here we are, I have filled up all the stitches all the way around and we are just left with the last row here that I have and then the first row here, so the foundation chain that we made. We need to join those two together. And the way I suggest that we do that is to crochet them together and actually slip stitch them. And I'm going to pop my hook here into the third loop of this stitch that we have. It's entirely up to you, but I find that works best because it pushes that stitch forward, because this is going to be the wrong side of our work. So into that third stitch, and third loop, and then into the main part of the foundation chain here on the other side. And the stitches should match up. You'll have the same number here as you had before. And so we just go into the third loop of the next, and then into the main part of the chain stitch there, and just work that slip stitch all the way down, matching stitch for stitch until you have run out of stitches. So once we've finished, you break your yarn and you can weave that end in, and then we can just turn it over there, and there we have our finished cuff. Now we are ready to add in our heel. Now this is an afterthought heel, and if we line it up here, we created this space. We have a straight version here, but when I haven't added my cuff yet, don't judge me. When we add our heel in, this is what creates the shape for the stocking and makes it bend. It creates more stitches into this space, and then we open up and that creates the stocking shape that we need. So to show you the heel, I'm actually going to be using a different coloured yarn, and I'm going to pop my hook into this very first stitch that we have here. We're going to be working all the way around the edge here of the stitches and then back around through this foundation chain that we did when we split for the heel. And we're going to work in continuous rounds, just like we did when we worked the toe actually, and they're going to feel really familiar because we're going to be using the same split stitches that we used there at the bottom as well. So for this first stitch, we're going to begin here and chain 1. And then already we need to work a decrease stitch. And in order to decrease, it's a really long-winded thing, we're going to do an extended single crochet 2 together. Oh, it's so hard to say. But this is what it looks like. We begin an extended single crochet here, yarn over and pull through that 1 to make the first part of the extended stitch. Then we begin one in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through just 1 because that's the extended part of the next stitch. And then we yarn over and we pull through all 3 of those, and that is an extended single crochet 2 together. And we're going to need to know how to do those for each stage of and each round that we have. It's going to pull 2 stitches down together into 1 and decrease. Then what we need to do is we need to work an extended single crochet into the next 14 stitches. So here we are. This is our repeat that we have. We've just done 14 extended single crochet after decreasing. And now we're ready to decrease these 2 again. So we start our first one there, our first extended, and then we start our second extended single crochet, yarn over and pull through all 3. And now we're ready to work in the next 14 stitches again. Of this round, we're going to decrease over the next 2 stitches and then work an extended single crochet in the next 14. Okay, so I've done that round again in my original colour, and I'm back here at the very first stitch again. And just like we did with the toe, we're going to work in continuous rounds, and I'm going to show you now the next part of the process in this other colour as well, because I think it will help us see how to decrease. We need to decrease this stitch here, which is a crochet 2 together, and we're going to pop into the centre of that second part of the crochet 2 together. Now it doesn't matter hugely, but it just looks much neater if we do it this way around. So that is where we join for the first part of this decrease of the stitch and start our extended, And then we go into the next stitch and we're splitting the stitches just like we did with the toe. So that is a split extended single crochet 2 together, and you see it creates a really lovely neat decrease for us and works beautifully for the rest of the heel. Now here I am back with the original colour, and let's just pop that extended single crochet 2 together there. That's our first stitch of the round that we need. And then following on from that, we need to work split extended single crochet into the next 9 stitches. And after that 9, we're going to then do a decrease stitch. So we're going to work 2 of these stitches together again. And then we need to work in the next 9. So a split extended single crochet in the next 9. And here we are ready to repeat that again. We're going to work 2 stitches together, and then we are going to work into 9 stitches, and then we do our final repeat for the round of 2 together. Then we need to repeat into 10 stitches. So we need to have 9, 9, 9 and 10 stitches in between our decreases for this round. Now here we are back at the beginning, and the next round is a really similar pattern by decreasing and then some stitches in between them, and you'll see it goes down by 1 digit each time. So we're going to do 2 stitches here together, and then we need to work in the next 8 stitches, and that then forms our repeat up until we get to the last repeat, and there will be 9. So we need to decrease 8, decrease 8, decrease 8, and then decrease 9. And now all we need to do is keep going, decreasing in this same way. We work the decreases and then 1 less stitch per repeat for each of the rounds that we do, up until we get to 2 stitches in between. So it'll be a decrease 2, decrease 2, decrease 2, and then decrease 3. This is all obviously detailed within the written pattern, but once you get this method in your head, you'll be absolutely fine. So keep going around and around until you get to that final round. Now here we are, having finished all of those decreases, and we are ready to break our yarn. And then the next step is to slip stitch into that very first stitch before we then sew it all together. Just helps hold it neatly together. And then we'll need to thread this end and work our way around to close this hole here. Now how you do that is entirely up to you. My advice would be don't pull it too tight because you'll end up with a puckered heel. But remember, this isn't a sock, it's not to fit in it on anyone, so it doesn't really matter as long as you're happy with the shape. But I just work it gently around the stitches of this last round and then pull until you're happy with it, and then weave that final end in. If you want to close it so that it's a straight line, you can, but I much prefer closing it in a ring like this. So here we are, just tuck this last end in, weave it in really nicely, and then pop through the other side to make sure that it's hidden on the inside of your stocking. So the final things I wanted to show you was how I make these pom-poms that I added. I did 2 per stocking, and then these little tags too. Now this one I have made ready for this multicoloured stocking, and I'm going to make a little yellow one too, and then we'll do a tag for it as well. Now, to make pom-poms, I love using these pom-pom makers. These are from Clover, but you can get all sorts from different yarn craft stores, and they're amazing because they open up like this and you just wind your yarn around them. But the tip is to cut your length of twine or string or whatever it is you're going to secure the center of your pom-pom with before you begin. If you have this ready, then all will be well, I promise. So to begin with, we grab our yarn and we decide on the side that we want to start winding, and we just go for it. Wind nice and steadily and evenly around to fill up this space. It's really important to go as far over to the edges as you possibly can and fill it up even fuller than you can possibly imagine. This is how full I have made mine, and just pop it in to see if there's any wiggle room, as if you can get any more in. I'll pop a couple more rounds in there, and then you close that shut, and then we are ready to break our yarn on this side. And then we're going to flip over, and then we're going to join our yarn and wind around this side now too. So fill both of them up as evenly as you possibly can, to make sure that your pom-pom is as fluffy and even as it can be. Break that yarn there and have this string ready for us, because what we're now going to do is we're going to turn to face here, and we're going to snip through the center of all of the yarns. Now don't worry, it won't ping open, but do keep your hand there just in case it wants to, and just snip nice and easily through the center of those, and then rotate round and then snip through the other side as well. Now once we've completed that, we are ready to add our twine, string, whatever you've decided to use around the center. Now get it nice and leveled up and then tie it. And the thing is, I've chosen to use this really strong twine, so I'm going to be able to pull this really, really tight in the center. But I say from experience, if you're using yarn that is not quite so strong, then pull really gently but firmly to get this knot in the middle. If not, it will snap and it will break and it will all end in tears. But once we've done that, we then open the doors, this side and then the other side. And the great thing about these pom-pom makers is we just get hold of the middle here and we undo it, and there we are. Our pom-pom, or very strangely shaped pom-pom, has appeared. Now we don't want it this shape at all. We want to trim it, and this is the key. This is the key to getting nice, neat and happy pom-poms, is to trim them. My best advice for this would be to get a little pot like this one to catch your fluff, because the fluff goes everywhere, and just trim away. Make it nice and neat and nice and round. Don't go too far too quickly, just nice and gently snip away, and then make it into the shape that you would like it to be. It might take a while, but it's better to take a while than take off a great big chunk to begin with and then have a much, much smaller pom-pom than you were expecting. But trim round until you're happy with the shape. Then when you finished, I decided to tie mine together at the top in kind of like a little braid, but you can do yours however you like, of course, but I just really simply tied it here at the top and then just carried on knotting it as they went up. But as I say, you do it however you like, and then you can attach it to the top of your stocking. The next thing that I added to mine were some name labels. Now I got these wooden labels from online, and I'll pop the link below to show you where I found those. And I have some little embellishments here. These are little wood cutouts, and I absolutely have no idea where they came from. They were in my stash, but aren't they absolutely beautiful? But I'm sure you can find something really similar online or in your local craft store. I used some twine, slightly thicker twine than I used for my pom-poms to tie it on, and then I already had these name labels. They were actually place settings for a wedding that we went to, so I would massively encourage you to use anything that you already have that will look beautiful. Something that means something to you is really important. Now all I did was glue gun, hot glued these onto these wooden labels, and then I added one of these little snowflakes into the corner. I made sure they were different for each person in the family, otherwise I knew there would be trouble. And then I just threaded the twine through the hole. Now the thing is, I did make sure that I found these with a pre-drilled hole, because there were some that were plain without them, and I just thought, you know what, my drilling precision is not that good. So if you want to use them like me, then make sure you get pre-drilled holes. I really hope you've enjoyed making these stockings with me. I've had such fun sharing them with you. Do come and show me which you make and what colours you use, and I will see you again soon.